Honorable delegates, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual sitting constitutes a sitting of the National Council of Provinces, and the place of the sitting is deemed to be Cape Town, where the seat of the National Council of Provinces is. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Council of Provinces, including the rules of debate, apply. Delegates should note that anything said to everyone via the chat screen is deemed to have been said to the House and may be rolled upon. Delegates enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Council of Provinces. For the purpose of decorum, all delegates who logged in shall be considered to be present. For the duration of the sitting, delegates must mute their microphones unless if they wish to speak. Any delegate who wishes to speak should use the raise your hand function. Honorable delegates, please note that the interpretation facility is active, and delegates are reminded to please keep their videos on for the duration of the sitting. I have been informed that there will be no notices of motion or motions without notice. We will now proceed to the first order of the day. The first order of the day is a consideration of the report of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense on letters from the President on the employment of the South African National Defense Force in the Mozambique Channel, Democratic Republic of Congo, Wuhan City in the Hubei province of the People's Republic of China, and in support of the South African Police Services and other state departments dated the 18th of June 2020. I now call on the Honorable N.E. Nchabaleng to present the committee's report. Honorable Nchabaleng, you've got 10 minutes to present the report. Over to you, Honorable Nchabaleng. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So then, can Honorable Nchabaleng please respond?
Thanks a lot, Deputy Chair. The submission of the presidential letters of deployment of the South African National Defence Force forms a critical part in maintaining civil control of the military in South Africa. Consideration of such deployments by Parliament ensures a thorough system of checks and balances on the use of military power. The table letters of the President of the SNDF deployment reflects the responsible usage of South Africa's military capability. These deployments illustrate the use of our military for the benefit of international peace and stability, as well as the protection of South African citizens. First, the deployment of the South African Navy in the Mozambican Channel illustrates South Africa's commitment towards maintaining maritime security within the SADC region. Due to continued naval deployments of the east coast of Africa, in conjunction with other interventions, piracy have been reduced significantly in recent years. The continued deployment of the South African Navy does not only contribute to the deterrence of the emergence of piracy, but also aids in establishing good order at sea in the SADC region. Second, the SNDF's participation in the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo highlights South Africa's commitment to establish peace and security on the African continent. South African forces have formed part of the various UN missions in the DRC since 2001 and has made significant contributions to ongoing efforts in stabilizing the region. The work of the SNDF as part of the force the work of the SNDF as part of the Force Intervention Brigade is of significant importance. The SNDF contingent has, in the past year, come under increased pressure due to budget and operational adjustment by the United Nations. The Minister of Defense and Military veterans is encouraged to continue her engagement with the UN to ensure the sustainability of the mission of South African troops deployed in the DRC. Their optimal functioning is essential to ensure their ongoing contribution to bring about safety and stability to the people of the DRC. Third, the SNDF participation in the repatriation of South African citizens from Wuhan in China illustrates the organization's dedication to the citizens of this country. Despite putting themselves at risk, a number of soldiers volunteered to form part of the historic repatriation, along with other participating state entities, can be congratulated on a highly successful mission. Finally, the Joint Standing Committee on Defense considers the letter related to the SNDF's deployment in support of the South African Police Services and other state departments. The COVID-19 pandemic requires a swift response from government, and the utilization of the SNDF as part of the broader state apparatus was required. The SNDF has made and continues to make crucial contributions in a number of ways, given its specialist capabilities. The Defense Force contributes by, for example, setting up field hospitals, identifying quarantine sites, providing water purification where needed, transporting life-saving medicines, and adding medical capacity through the South African military services. In addition, Chairperson, thousands of military and other military personnel assisted the police in ensuring citizens' cooperation with the announced regulations. During its deliberation on the letter, members of the Joint Standing Committee noted the positive engagement between citizens and soldiers that was generally observed. The professional manner in which soldiers conducted themselves is crucial to their maintenance of healthy civil-military relations. However, Chairperson, observations were also made of instances where SNDF members acted outside their mandate and in contravention of the law, which should be strongly condemned. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nchabaleng. I now want to put the question, and the question is that the report be agreed to. But before we proceed to the voting, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71, if they so wish. You can just indicate through the participants' provinces, or we can just go to the provinces. If there is none, if there is no declaration, we will continue. Any declaration, you can just indicate by speaking up. If there is no declaration, we shall proceed to the voting on the question. And the question is that the report be agreed to. I will call the provinces in alphabetical order, and the heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape agreed.
Thank you very much. Free State.
We Free State vote in favor.
Thank you very much. Gauteng.
Gauteng in favor.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka.
Thank you very much. Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Limpopo.
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga supports.
Northern Cape.
Northern Cape support.
Northwest.
Northwest supports them some.
Western Cape.
Western Cape supports.
Thank you very much to all the provinces. The voting is now closed. All provinces have voted in favor, and we therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. We will proceed to the second order of the day, and I will not ask the table to call it. We will just continue, just for clarity. Consideration of the report of the Select Committee on Education and Technology, Sports, Arts and Culture agreement between the Government of the Republic of South Africa and the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology on the establishment of an International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology component in the Republic of South Africa with its explanatory memorandum tabled in terms of Section 231(2) of the Constitution 1996, dated 26 May 2020. I call on the Honorable Alec Chabaleng to present the committee's report. Over to you, Honorable Chabaleng.
Thanks, Chairperson. Oops, my toys have just turned against me. Yeah, thanks, Chairperson. The department.
In the meantime, up until someone assists with the video.
Am I audible, Chair? Chairperson, are you able to follow me now?
Yeah, Chairperson. To work on the video. Just speak, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Chairperson. The Department of Science and Innovation seeks the approval of Parliament to ratify agreement between the Government of the Republic of South Africa and the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, ICGEB, on the establishment of its component in the Republic of South Africa, hereinafter referred to as the agreement. The ICGEB is an intergovernmental organization initially established as a special project of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. It has been fully autonomous since 1994 and runs 46 laboratories in Italy, New Delhi, in India and Cape Town. The ICGEB member states now include 21 countries in Africa, such as Namibia, 9 in the Middle East, 13 in Europe, 5 in Central America and the Caribbean, 8 in South America, and 10 in Asia. The ICGEB Board of Governors is made up of representatives from each member state, and the Council of Scientific Advisors, comprised of eminent scientists who oversee the scientific program of the center and govern the international govern the ICGEB. Currently, approximately 700 people from over 40 different countries work at the ICGEB, of which almost 600 are scientific personnel, including research scientists, postdoctoral fellows, PhD students, and research technicians. Both governing bodies meet annually. South Africa has been a member since 2004, and its Cape Town component of the ICGEB marked the first African country and only the third in the world that hosted a laboratory of the ICGEB. In 2019, the host agreement between South Africa and the ICGEB was signed and marked the renewal of the commitment and expression of continued support and international relations between South Africa and the ICGEB. This collaboration signified the start of science and technology partnership that contributed to the advancement of the global sustainable development. The South African component aims to strengthen the activities of the ICGEB on the African continent and has already yielded critical research findings that are important to the South African continent. The component ran research that are at the forefront of international scientific excellence in infectious diseases, that is HIV, AIDS, malaria, TB, non-communicable diseases, cancer, and in plant biology, biopesticides. The agreement is expected to bolster South Africa's status in the science and innovation field, and members of the Select Committee on Education, Technology, Sports, Arts, and Culture express support for this endeavor. The report on the agreement between the Government of South Africa and the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology on the establishment of an International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, components in South Africa, tabled in terms of Section 231, Section 2 of the Constitution, has been adopted on the 26th of May 2020. I thank you, Madam Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chabaleng. And we will now put the question. But before we proceed to the voting, we shall allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. Any declarations? Silence means consent. So in the absence of any declarations, we shall now proceed to the voting on the question. And the question is that the report be agreed to. I will now call upon provinces in alphabetical order, and we call upon heads of delegations to indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape, I pass the report.
Free
Eastern Cape
State.
supports the report. Free State is in favor of the report.
Gauteng.
Gauteng in favor of the report, Chairperson.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu Natal, I pass the Chairperson report.
Limpopo.
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga support.
Northern Cape. Northern Cape. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape support, Chair.
Northwest.
Northwest support, Chair.
Western Cape.
Eastern Cape support.
Thank you very much to all the provinces. The voting is now closed and all provinces voted in favor, and I therefore declare a report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. Honorable Moimang, if you are in Kuruman, you must tell me so that I ask someone in Kimberley to respond. Thank you.
Honorable Bartlett is ready.
Honorable delegates, we will now proceed to the third order. Consideration of Science and Technology Laws Amendment Bill. It's a Section 75 bill and report of Select Committee on Education and Technology, Sports, Arts and Culture thereon. I call on the Honorable Nchabaleng to present the committee's report. Honorable Nchabaleng, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Honorable Deputy Chair. The Science and Technology Laws Amendment Bill, Section 75 Bill, meaning that it does not have a bearing in provinces. The motive of this bill is to harmonize the governance principles and procedures across the entities that report to the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. This harmonization process commenced during the fourth Parliament and has since resulted in the passing of two amendment acts, namely the SNT Laws Amendment Act number 16 of 2011 and SNT Laws Amendment Act number 7 of 2014. This SNT Laws Amendment Bill in its current form applies to 5 acts, namely the 2001 Academy of Science of South Africa Act, the 2008 Human Science Research Act, the 1988 Scientific Research Council Act, the 2008 South African National Space Agency Act, and the 2008 Technology Innovation Agency Act. This bill, Chairperson, seeks to harmonize the processes for the termination of the membership of boards of or councils of the entities established by the Principal Act, to clarify the requirements for the disqualification for people from membership of boards or council, to provide the appointment of external persons to committees of boards or councils, and harmonize the processes for the appointment of chief executive officers of the entities. The inconsistency, inadequacy, uncoordinated management, and different requirements that regulate the operations and governance of the public entities reporting to the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation necessitated this amendment. The Science and Technology Laws Amendment Bill B42 of 2018 was referred to the National Council of Provinces on the 28th of February 2020. After its consideration and adoption by the National Assembly on 3rd December 2019, on receipt, the Select Committee on Education, Technology, Sports, Arts and Culture called for public submissions on the SNT Laws Amendment Bill from 14 to 29 May 2020 to process the bill. On the 26th May 2020, the committee received its first presentation from the department for consideration. Having received comments from one stakeholder, the committee engaged the department based on the comments received on 10 June 2020. The committee did not finalize the bill on the same day and decided to hold another meeting to read the bill word by word. The chairperson has considered the public comments and the presentation by the department and sought the guidance of the Parliament legal advisor on the process. The chairperson reached each clause number and received the comments regarding the clause from the members of the committee. The committee knows that those amendments are introduced and will address the gaps as identified. The committee anonymously supports the amendments and the bill without changes and adopted the bill on the Science and Technology Laws Amendment Bill 2018 on 17 June 2020. So I saw, Chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nchabaleng. The question is that the bill be agreed to. But before we proceed to the voting, which will be individual voting, I shall allow parties the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. 3 minutes per declaration of vote if they wish to do so. Parties? It means if there is no one that is speaking up, we will now proceed to the voting. But we will allow a little bit of time for all delegates who are outside the virtual platform to join the session. Can we just get an indication? Advocate?
Deputy, there appears to be no member on the waiting room.
No member on the waiting room, which means we will proceed on the voting to the voting on the question. Each delegate, including special delegates, has one vote. And we will use the raise your hand function. Those that doesn't have access to that function will just indicate like that. So all those that vote in favor, please raise your hands and keep your hands raised up until the tally has been done. You just do it electronically. Advocate, I hope the host officials can see better from their side. Is the tally concluded? Honorable Moimang, you can lower your hand. You have, I'm sure you have voted electronically. Can we get a tally from the completed count? Can we continue?
Chairperson, I couldn't vote. It's Mlindi Nana. I couldn't vote electronically. I don't know what's wrong with my gadget here.
Are you voting in favor?
Yes.
So that we can just add your vote to the votes that is already there.
It's that cap.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Nana. Advocate, can we continue? Can you, the table, just lower all the hands? Those that are voting against can now use the very same function. Voting against. Honorable Nchabaleng, are you voting against? Honorable Chabaleng, are you voting against? Because it's your report. Can you unmute yourself? Unmute.
Oh yeah, I'm unmuted, ma'am.
Are you voting against?
No, I'm not voting against. I'm voting for the
Favor. It's fine because
Yeah, in
it's not
favor.
concerned. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Those that are voting against.
Deputy Chair,
Yes.
Deputy Chair, Honorable Mujise, I'm voting
In favor.
in favor. Is that
Thank
my?
I'm also in favor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those
I'm
that are
voting in favor.
can just those that can just those that the gadget didn't work. Can that only those ones indicate?
Yes.
Yes, not working. It's fine. Thank you.
And myself, Deputy Chair.
Yes, Chief Whip, we took note.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank Deputy Chair.
The problem is that I asked those voting against Chief Whip, and now your gadgets are showing like Mangwenya, and there is Honorable Lula.
I lowered my hand. My apology.
Okay.
I lowered my hand. Thanks.
Thank you. We are going to those that are voting against. Can we see their heads? Advocate, is there anyone that are voting against?
Deputy Chairperson, it appears there's no vote against.
There's no opposition. No one that wants to abstain. If there is no one that wants to, yes. There is no one that wants to abstain. Can we then get the tally? Advocate. So I don't know how many members are present. So can we just get the number who voted?
Yes, Deputy, we just, if we can just be given 2 minutes.
So the voting is now closed. We are just waiting for the results. From the look of things, it seems as if there is no opposition to the bill. We just want to have the official results.
Deputy Chair. Deputy Chair.
Yes, Honorable Matebula.
Yeah, we are voting against.
Who are you?
Honorable
You
Matebula.
can just vote for yourself as an individual. So you are
Yes,
one.
I said it. Yes, I'm voting against.
Yes,
vote. They must look at the chat also.
Yes, you said we are. That's why I'm asking, who are you?
Yeah, English is not my mother tongue, but you heard what I wanted to say.
I understand. Thank you, my dear.
Rakenza Matebu.
We are just waiting for the results, then we can continue.
I also voted against.
Deputy Chair, it means we have 31 in favor and 2 against.
And 2 against. The bill is agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. Honorable delegates, we will now proceed to the 4th order. The 4th order is a consideration of a report of Select Committee on Security and Justice, Government Notice number R1692, published in Government Gazette number 42916, dated 20 December 2019. Regulations for Judicial Officers in the Lower Courts, 1993. Amendment made under Section 16 of the Magistrates Act 1993, dated 11 June 2020. We will now call on the Honorable Sheikh to present the committee's report. Honorable Sheikh, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members, good morning. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee on Security and Justice considered the regulations for judicial officers in the lower courts, 1993, amendment made under Section 16 of the Magistrates Act 1993, and reports as follows. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee received a briefing on the regulations from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development on the 11th of June 2020. Historically, magistrates were public servants. The Magistrates Act 1993 created the Magistrates Commission as a statutory body to, amongst others, make recommendations to the Minister regarding issues affecting magistrates. In terms of Section 16, Subclause 1 of the Magistrates Act, the Minister of Justice makes regulations in relation to judicial officers in lower courts on the recommendation of the Magistrates Commission. Such regulations can cover a wide range of administrative issues, including appointments, promotions, transfer, discharge and disciplinary stats, duties, powers, conduct, discipline, hours of attendance, leave of absence, including leave, gratuity, pension, and any other conditions of service. Regulation 38 refers to the repealed Public Service Regulations and Public Service Staff Code in respect of accumulated leave, vacation, sick, and special leave of magistrates. The regulations seek to address the fact that magistrates' accumulated leave had a huge financial burden on the state. New regulations made with the effect from the 1st of January 2020 was to omit reference to the Public Service Staff Code and Public Service Regulations, and the new regulations substituted regulations 38, 38A, 38B, and 38C. The committee noted that the regulations deal with the leave dispensation of magistrates, and the main intention with the new leave dispensation for magistrates was to move away from public service prescripts insofar as they still apply to magistrates, so as to further enhance the independence of the judiciary. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the government notice number R1692, published in Government Gazette number 42916, dated the 20th of December 2019, Regulations for Judicial Office in the Lower Courts 1993, amendment made under Section 16 of the Magistrates Act 1993, resolved not to disapprove the regulations. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh. I will now put the question, but before we proceed to the voting, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make the declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. The maximum 3 minutes per declaration. If there is no declaration, we shall proceed to the voting on the question. And the question is that the report be agreed to. I will now call on the provinces alphabetically to cast their votes. When called upon, heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape, I cast the report.
Free State.
Free State agrees to the report.
Gauteng.
Gauteng ondersteun.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal iyayichaza, iyayeseka i-report.
Limpopo.
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga support.
Northern Cape. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape support, Chair.
Northwest.
Stem saam, Chair.
Western Cape.
Weskaap ondersteun die wetgewing.
Baie dankie aan al die provinsies. The voting is now closed. All the provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Next, we will be proceeding to the 5th and the 6th orders, the consideration of reports of Select Committee on Security and Justice, Treaty, and the explanatory memorandum to the treaty between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Mexican States on extradition, and the treaty and the explanatory memorandum to the treaty between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Mexican States on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. I now call on the Honorable Zukiswa Noita to present the committee's report. Honorable Noita.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. The Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the request that Parliament approve the ratification of extradition of treaty and the Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters between South Africa and United Mexican States, tabled in terms of Section 231(2) of the Constitution of 1996, report as follows. The Section 231(2) of the Constitution provides that an international agreement only becomes binding after it has been approved by resolution in both national and national council of provinces. Furthermore, Section 2(3)(a) of the Extradition Act of 1962 provides that no agreement is of any force unless it is ratified by Parliament. In this case of mutual legal assistance, Section 27(2) of the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act 1996 contains a similar provision. Section 2(1)(a) of the Extradition Act empowers the President to enter into an agreement with any foreign state providing for surrender on a reciprocal basis of a persons accused of convicted or committing extraditable or specified offenses within the jurisdiction of Republic or in foreign states. In respect of the provision of mutual legal assistance, Section 27(1) of the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act of 1996 empowers the President similarly. During 2012, extradition and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters treaties were recognized with the United Mexican States. On the 6th of December 2012, former President Zuma authorized the former Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. Radebe, to sign the treaty on behalf of government. It was decided that the treaty first be signed by the Mexican Attorney General, whereafter the treaties would be returned to South Africa for the former minister to sign. The treaties were therefore signed in the 1st of November 2013 and 24 March 2014, respectively. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development subsequently received information that after the change of administration in Mexico, there were indications that the new administration would require certain amendments to the treaties in order to regard them as a valid or in force. In November 2019, the department was informed that the Mexican authorities would not require any amendments to the treaties, and the South African process with the ratification process. On the 5th of March 2020, the minister tabled the treaty with the request that the National Assembly approve their ratification in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution. On the 10th of March 2020, the treaty and their respective explanatory memorandum were referred to the Committee for Consideration and Report. And on the 27th May 2020, committee was briefed on the treaty. The purpose of the treaty are to ensure that South Africa will not be a safe haven for criminals by providing extradition of fugitive and facilitate the effectiveness of the law enforcement authority in the prevention, investigation, prosecution of crimes. In these treaties are needed, amongst others, to assist the fight against drug trafficking and related crime emanating from Latin America. We therefore recommend, Chair, as follows. that the Select Committee on Security or the Security and Justice, having considered the request that the Parliament approve the ratification of the treaty and the extra memorandum of treaty between the Government of Republic of South Africa and the Government of United Mexican State on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, tables in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of 1996, recommend that the House approve the ratification of the treaty in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of Republic of South Africa of 1996. The Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered again the request that Parliament approve the ratification of the extradition treaty and extra plenary memorandum to the treaty between the Government of Republic of South Africa and the Government of American States, table in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of 1996, recommend that House approve the ratification of the treaty in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of 1996. The report is therefore tabled for your consideration. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Rita. We will put the question, but before we proceed to the voting, I will allow provinces the opportunity to make the declarations of vote. We will make the declarations of vote separately on the two orders. So if you have a declaration of vote now, it will be for the fifth order. Honorable members, Honorable Labuskane. Oh, because
Okay.
I see you have unmuted, that's why I'm asking. So there is no declaration. We shall now proceed to the voting on the fifth order. And the question is that the report be agreed to. We will follow the same process where we will ask provinces or heads of delegations to indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape, iyayeseka i-report, iyayixhasa.
Free State?
Eastern Cape supports the report.
You are Free State, Honorable Tsube. Can you repeat? Say Free State.
Free State supports the report.
No, because there was two people that say Eastern Cape. That's why I thought it was you. Free State?
Free
Gauteng?
State. Gauteng supports the report, Chairperson.
KwaZulu-Natal?
IKwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka i-report, Sihlalo.
Limpopo?
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga support, Deputy Chair.
Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support. Northern Cape support, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bartlett. That's your maiden speech.
Yeah.
Northwest Temsam, Northwest Temsam.
Western Cape?
Weskaap ondersteun.
Baie dankie.
Dansa.
Baie dankie, almal. The voting is now closed. All provinces have voted in favor. I therefore declare the report to agree to in terms of Section 65. We shall now proceed to the voting on the sixth order. And the question is the same, that the report be agreed to. We will once again call on provinces, and we are allowing you to make declarations of vote on the sixth order in terms of Rule 71, if you so wish. If there is no declarations, let's continue with the voting.
Can we just see this? Can I just see what is the sixth order, please?
Can we go back? The sixth order is a treaty on the same agreement between South Africa and the United Mexican States.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. I don't have to see it.
Thank you. So can we continue? Can we proceed to the voting? Eastern Cape? Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape iyayeseka i-report.
Free
Eastern
State?
Cape supports the report.
Free State ayidumelana le-report.
Gauteng?
Gauteng supports the report.
KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal iyayixhasa i-report.
Popo?
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga iyayiseka report.
Northern Cape,
Northern Cape support, Honorable Chair.
Northwest,
Stem some, Chair.
Western Cape.
Support.
The voting is now closed. Thank you very much to all the provinces. All the provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of section 65 of the Constitution. And with that, we will hand over to Honorable Ngwenya to proceed with the 7th and the 8th orders of the day. Honorable Ngwenya.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Delegate, we will now proceed to the 7th and the 8th order in consideration of the report of the Select Committee of Security and Justice, provisional suspension from office of Mr. L.T. Mkanzi, Regional Magistrate, Bloemfontein, tabled in terms of the Section 13(3)(b) of the Magistrate Act 1993, number 90 of 1993, date 29 May 2020. Confirmation of suspension removal from office of Ms. L.B. Freeman, a senior magistrate, Mossel Bay, in terms of the Section 13(4)(b) of the Magistrate Act 1993, Act number 90 of 1993, date 25 June 2020. Now I call the Honorable E.M. Mtetwa to present the committee report. Over to you, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to present the report of the Select Committee on the Security and Justice on the provision suspension from the office of Mr. L.T. Katsi, Regional Magistrate, Bloemfontein, as we have said, Chair, tabled in terms of Section 13, subsection 3B of the Magistrate Act of 1993, number 90 of 1993, dated 29 May 2020, and the report of the Select Committee on Security and Justice on the report dated 25 May 2020, on the confirmation of the suspension and the removal of the office of Mrs. L.B. Freeman as a senior magistrate of the Mossel Bay in terms of Section 13(4)(b) of the Magistrate Act of 1993, Act number 90 of 1993, dated 25th June 2020. The report, Chair, with regard to Mr. L.T. Katsi, the Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the Minister's report table on 18 May 2020 and referred to it, informed the Parliament of the provision suspension from office of Mr. L.T. Katsi, the Regional Magistrate in Bloemfontein, pending the outcomes of the investigation into his fitness to hold the office as a magistrate as required by the Act Section 13, subsection 3B of Magistrate Act of 1990 of 1993. The Act report as follows, Chair. Mr. Katsi was appointed as a Regional Magistrate Bloemfontein on the 1st of December 2013. The misconduct charges against Mr. Katsi relate to prima facie evidence that he, during the period of 28 May 2017 and 4 May 2018, on a numerous occasion communicated on his cell phone with an accused person who appeared before him in the criminal court. The Ethics Committee of the Magistrate Commission resolved that, Chair, a preliminary investigation be conducted in terms of Clause 26, Clause 1 of the Regulation of Judicial Office in the Law Court in 1994. The Commission invited Mr. Katsi to provide representation as to why it should not be recommended that he be provisional suspended from the office. Without remuneration, Chair, Mr. Katsi made a representation on the 12th and the 22nd of November 2019. On the 29th of November 2019, the Commission resolved to recommend that Mr. Katsi be provisional suspended from office, be suspended from the office, Chair, and the Commissioner was of the view that the allegation against him are of such a serious nature as to make it inappropriate to perform the function of the magistrate while the allegations are being investigated. The Commission did not make any determination regarding the withholding of remuneration should he be suspended. On the 9th of May 2020, the Minister on the evidence of Commission decided to provisional suspend Mr. Katsi, which immediately effect the pending of finalization of inquiry into his fitness to hold office as a magistrate, and in terms of the Act, has submitted a report for consideration by Parliament. The committee is of the view, Chair, that the allegation against Mr. Katsi point to a possible case of corruption, and it is inappropriate for a judicial officer facing such allegation to continue preside over cases while the allegations are being investigated. The recommendation, Chair, of Mr. Katsi was that, having considered the report tabled on the 18th May 2020 by the Minister for Justice and Correctional Service on the provisional suspension from office of Mr. L.T. Katsi, pending the outcomes of the investigation into his fitness to hold the office of magistrate, the committee recommended that the National Council of Provinces, confirm Mr. L.T. Katsi provisional suspension from the office of the magistrate. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tetwa. I'll now put the question. The question is that the report be agreed to. We shall now proceed to the voting of the 7th order. And the question is that the report be agreed to. Before we proceed to vote, I shall now allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of vote on 7th order in terms of the Rule 71, if so wish. Maximum is 3 minutes per declaration. Silence means no. I'll now call upon the provinces to cast their vote on the 7th order. When called upon, heads of the delegation must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Free State.
Free State votes in favor of the report.
Free State. Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape. Sorry.
Eastern Cape, EICASI report.
Eastern Cape supports the report.
Free State.
Free State supports the report.
Gauteng.
Gauteng supports the report.
KwaZulu Natal.
IKwaZulu Natal iyayiseka i-report isihlanu.
Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga
Limpopo, I mean to say Limpopo.
Limpopo supports, Chairperson.
Okay. Limpopo support and Mpumalanga support.
Yes, Chair, we support.
Northern Cape.
Northwest.
Northern Cape support, Chair.
Northwest support, Chair. Northwest support.
Western Cape.
Western Cape supports.
The voting is now closed. We have agreed that if there is any problem, we will just continue. The voting is now closed. All provinces have voted in favor, and we declare the report to agree to. We shall proceed to the voting on the 8th order, and the question is that the report be agreed to. We shall allow provinces to make declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. Honorable Gwenya will just indicate which is there. No declarations of vote, then we will continue to vote. Heads of delegation, you will indicate whether you vote in favor, against, or abstain. Okay. Are you back, Maui? Are you back, Mangwenya? We still cannot hear you. Unmute.
I'm back, Chairperson.
Yes,
Yeah, but no Zoom.
Eastern Cape.
Where are you now?
We are starting with the voting on the 8th order. Eastern Cape agreed. You can go to Free State.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Free State. Free State.
Free State supports the report. Free State supports the report.
Gauteng.
Gauteng supports the report.
KwaZulu Natal.
IKwaZulu Natal iyayeseka i-report isihlanu.
Siyabonga. Limpopo.
Limpopo supports the report.
Raleboga. Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga supports the report.
Raleboga. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape supports the report, Chair.
Thank you. Northwest.
Northwest support the report, Chair.
Thanks. Western Cape.
The Western Cape supports the report.
Thank you. Voting is now closed. Number of provinces vote in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of the Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Delegate, we will now proceed to the 9th order, consideration of report of Select Committee of Security and Justice, notice for the declaration of the amnesty period in terms of Section 1392A of the Firearms Control Act 2000, Act number 60 of 2000, date 11 June 2020. I now call on the Honorable Sheikh to present the committee report.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Chair, the inception of the Firearms Control Act 2000 in 2003 established a comprehensive and effective system of firearm control administered by the South African Police Services. The Central Firearms Registry was established to process and monitor firearm ownership through applications and renewals. Section 139, subsection 1 provides that the Minister of Police may, by notice in Gazette, declare an amnesty if the amnesty may result in the reduction of the number of illegally possessed firearms in South Africa and if it is in the public interest to do so. Section 139, subsection 2 of the Firearms Control Act of 2000 also provides that such amnesty will only be valid if it is approved by Parliament. In terms of Section 138 of the Firearm Control Act, amnesty means an indemnity against prosecution for the unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition. Firearms amnesty is therefore a very important process as it has the potential to decrease the number of illegal firearms in South Africa and thereby reduce violent crime. Honorable Chair, as members will recall, on the 13th of November 2019, the National Council of Provinces approved the firearms amnesty for the period 1st of December 2019 until the 31st of May 2020. However, within this amnesty period, a national state of disaster was declared due to COVID-19. And as you are aware, the regulations to the National State of Disaster Act 2005 prohibited the movement of people to curb the outbreak of the pandemic. This had an impact on the number of persons applying for amnesty. For this reason, the Minister of Police tabled a further notice for Parliament's consideration of a declaration of amnesty in terms of Section 139, subsection 2A of the Firearms Control Act of 2000. The Select Committee met on the 3rd of June 2020 and received a briefing from the Minister for Police and the South African Police Services. SAPS informed the committee that the amnesty was premised on the following 5 objectives: to reduce the number of illegally possessed firearms in circulation in South Africa, to provide firearm owners with the opportunity to hand in unwanted firearms, to prevent crime and violence and promote safety, to address the fundamental causes of crime in order to effectively protect our communities, and to ensure people living in South Africa feel safe and have no fear of crime. Honorable Chair, furthermore, the partial achievement of the set objectives and numerous requests from members of the public, as well as other factors such as the festive season and COVID-19, contributed to the minimal participation in the 2019-20 amnesty, which prompted a submission for another amnesty. SAPS also indicated that the number of firearms which were surrendered during the 2019-20 amnesty was far below the number of firearms surrendered during the 2005 amnesty declared for the same period of 6 months. And although crime levels showed a decline, SAPS indicated that there were still hotspots that could be addressed through the amnesty. During the previous amnesty, 46 police stations had been excluded based on a risk assessment on the readiness of all provinces. In the current amnesty, the 46 police stations have been reduced to 28 stations. The SAPS indicated that many of the previously excluded stations' risk profiles has improved and were thus included in the proposed amnesty. Honorable Chair, SAPS also informed the committee that the declaration of a further amnesty would afford the communities another opportunity to surrender illegal and unwanted firearms and ammunition in an effort to curb the proliferation of illegal firearms in circulation. Honorable Chair, the committee noted the progress made to date during the amnesty period, which revealed the following: 27,336 firearms were surrendered, 212,476 ammunition was surrendered, 6,891 cases were sent for analysis by the Integrated Ballistic Information System, and 10,704 applications for firearm licenses were received. During the committee's deliberations, members queried whether it would not be prudent for the SAPS to wait for the judgment in the case of Gun Owners of South Africa versus the National Commission of Police and another, currently before the Supreme Court of Appeal, as it may have an impact on the need for an amnesty. The department indicated that the court case and the amnesty provided for under law were 2 separate matters, and that the minister was acting within his powers, and that the minister would adopt an appropriate strategy when the judgment is delivered. Regarding the IBIS testing of ammunition cartridges, members requested the SAPS to provide an indication of how many cartridges tested positive for use in reported crimes. The SAPS indicated that they sent 6,891 cases for ballistic testing, and any positively identified case would be sent for further investigation. The committee noted that the process to register the return of firearms required a lot of paperwork at often undermanned frontline desks in police stations. Members noted the Pinetown police station in Old Main Road had broken fingerprint identifying equipment and lacked the requisite paperwork. To assist the public, and requested that the department rectify the matter at the station, but also the department to improve the overall submission process. However, the committee noted and recognized the importance of the recovery of illegal firearms and the potential impact it may have on the reduction of violence and crime in South Africa. The committee was pleased that there was a significant reduction of contact crimes during the 2019-20 amnesty period. In particular, murder had decreased from 4,016 reported cases prior to the amnesty period to 3,172 during the amnesty period. The committee noted that SAPS has already undertaken awareness-raising activities with members of the public. However, the committee specifically requested SAPS to improve the reach of its communication and awareness campaigns with respect to the amnesty period to ensure the broader community is made aware of the amnesty period. The committee acknowledged the pending court case, but emphasized that the SAPS cannot suspend its operations due to the court case, while crime continues to occur on a daily basis, often with the use of illegal firearms. The committee supported the new dates for amnesty because it believes that the amnesty will add value to the reduction of illegal firearms and crime levels in our country. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee, after due consideration, approved the Minister's request for an amnesty period and recommends the National Council of Provinces approve the amnesty period as tabled for the 1st of October 2020 to the 31st of January 2021. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. I now put the question. The question is that the report agreed to. We shall now proceed to the voting of the questions.
And Chair, this is Honorable Abskar. I want to do a declaration.
Okay, thanks.
Honorable Chair.
We shall now proceed to the voting
Honorable
of the
Chair.
question, and the question is that the report be agreed to. Before we proceed to vote, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of vote in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. Maximum is 3 minutes per declaration. Honorable Ketty.
Honorable Chair, is Honorable Dodov here? I would also like to make a declaration.
Can I continue, Chair?
Okay, I've got Honorable Ketty and Honorable
Dodovo.
Where's
Dodovo.
your hands, Honorable Dodovo?
Yes.
Honorable Ketty.
Thank you, Chair.
Lapskachen.
Yes, I'm going to.
Okay, ma'am.
Honorable Chair, the Western Cape is in principle not opposed to the firearm amnesty. However, we are of the opinion that the circumstances and timing could have and should have been better. This is based on the following factors: the pending case before the Supreme Court of Appeal, the time that has lapsed since the amnesty, which comes virtually before a proper assessment of the previous amnesty period could have been done, South African Police Service's ability to do the necessary ballistics testings, the breakdown of trust between the public and the SAPS, which undoubtedly led to the failure of the previous amnesty, and most importantly, that amnesties do not have the effect of taking firearms from the real criminals. SAPS need to rethink its strategy of addressing crime. Calling for an amnesty every single time serves as little more than a smokescreen to appear to be addressing crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lapskachen. Honorable Dodovo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. As the ANC, we support the firearms amnesty because it is quite important that as a country we must continue to fight crime and to reduce the levels of murder and all those related criminal activities perpetuated as a result of the firearms. We think that South Africans deserve safer communities, and this amnesty will add value, will contribute in terms of the realization of that particular objective. We think that we cannot wait on the basis of the fact that there is a court case pending, but we must support the endeavors of the Minister of the Police, as well as the police service as a whole, to ensure that we eliminate especially the unlicensed and illegal firearms, which are used, especially in our African communities, to perpetuate crime. And in this sense, in whatever that we do, we must ensure that we support the SAPS in this amnesty, firearm amnesty that is put before us. We think that the SAPS must strengthen its communication so that our people must be aware of this and therefore obliged and comply in terms of handing over their firearms, especially the illegal firearms. On those bases, as the ANC, we support this particular bill and ensure that we take this particular process forward. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dodobu. I will now call upon the provinces to cast their vote. When called upon, heads of the delegations must indicate their vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape, I cast a report.
Free State.
Sayikasa.
Siyabonga. Gauteng.
Gauteng supports the report.
Thank you. KwaZulu Natal.
KwaZulu Natal. Iyayeseka i-report.
Siyayeseka Mama Ngwe, Mama Baby.
Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga support.
The report.
Northern Cape.
Northern Cape supports the report.
Northwest.
Northwest supports the report.
Western Cape.
Chair, on a point of order, before I vote, I just want to know in which capacity did Honorable Dodover did this declaration, because, as far as I know, he's not a provincial whip, and the whip is in the House, so I just want to know. And the Western Cape do support the report.
Chief Whip, can you assist? Honorable Mhai, Chief Whip.
No, Chair, I'm caught unprepared for this question. I don't know. The table staff can advise, Chair.
Okay, Advocate.
Thank you very much, Deputy House Chair. Because it's a provincial vote, the declaration will be done by the province, not necessarily the provincial. As long as it is the province that is making a declaration and not a member in his individual capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate. Honorable Lapskahan.
Yeah, yes, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
She has been clarified.
Are you answered?
Yes,
clarified.
She is
clarified.
Okay, can we continue with voting? Western Cape?
I already voted, Chair. We support the report.
Thank you, ma'am. The voting is now closed. Since now, provinces, number of provinces, 9 numbers of provinces voted in favor, I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable delegates, we will now proceed to the 10th order. Consideration of the Civil Union Amendment Bill. Order 10. Consideration of the Civil Union Amendment Bill, B11B 2018, National Assembly, Sec 75, and report of Select Committee of Security and Justice thereof. I call the Honorable Sheikh to present the committee report. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to all honorable members. Honorable Chair, the Civil Union Act 2006 was enacted as a result of the Constitutional Court decision in Minister of Home Affairs versus Furey 2006. The Constitutional Court ruled that it was unconstitutional for the state to provide the benefits of marriage to opposite-sex couples whilst denying them to same-sex couples. This infringed the right to equality before the law and the right not to be discriminated against by the state on grounds of sexual orientation. The purpose of the bill is to repeal Section 6 of the Act, which allows a marriage officer to inform the minister that he or she objects on the grounds of conscience, religion, and belief to solemnizing a civil union between persons of the same sex. These marriage officers are public officials employed by the Department of Home Affairs. Clause 2 of the bill also contains a transitional provision which provides that any exemption granted by the minister in terms of Section 6 of the Principal Act prior to the commencement of this Act lapses 24 months from the date of commencement of this Act, and the minister must ensure that there is a marriage officer other than a marriage officer referred to in Section 5 of the Principal Act available to solemnize a civil union at every Department of Home Affairs office. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee on Security and Justice received a briefing on the Civil Union Amendment Bill from the Parliamentary Legal Advisor on the 18th of October 2019. Following this briefing, the committee took a resolution to involve the public and call for written submissions on the bill. The committee placed the advertisement on electronic platforms calling for written submissions from the 5th of November to the 6th of December 2019, and the committee received a total of 325 submissions from organizations and individuals either in favor or against the amendment bill. Honorable Chair, in respect of those opposed to the repeal of Section 6 of the Civil Union Act, they argue that Section 15 of the Constitution, which includes the rights to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion, and Section 9, subsection 3 of the right to not be unfairly discriminated against because of one's belief, are directly affected by the bill's removal of Section 6. The repeal will also affect the human dignity of all persons in terms of Section 10 of the Constitution, including persons who have a conscientious objection to solemnizing a same-sex marriage, and that the proposed amendment would not pass the Section 36 limitation test that is applied when determining whether it is reasonable and justifiable to limit any of the rights in the Bill of Rights. These organizations and individuals also proposed certain administrative alternatives. Some of them included roving marriage officers, assignment of employees to specific officers, or hiring to redress any imbalance in staffing. Honorable Chair, those in favor of the repeal of Section 6 argued that Section 6 is problematic as it allows a marriage officer to impose a moral judgment towards a same couple and object to solemnize. They argued that Section 7, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides that the state must respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights contained in the Bill of Rights, and that Section 6 infringes on Section 9, which is equality, Section 10, human dignity, Section 12, freedom and security of the person, They argue that this infringement cannot be justified in terms of the limitation of rights under Section 36 of the Constitution. Those in favor of the repeal of Section 6 also make proposals in respect of the transitional provision. They argue that continuing to allow officers to refuse to solemnize same-sex marriages for 24 months after the adoption of the bill is an unjustifiable limitation of the constitutional precepts in Sections 9, 10, and 12 of the Constitution. They argued that state officials have a fundamental right to believe whatever they like, but public servants should not be able to pick and choose which laws they will follow or which services they will provide. Honorable Chair, on the 18th of May 2020, the committee considered the salient points contained in the written submissions. At this meeting, the committee agreed to request a legal opinion on the aspects pertaining to public participation, particularly whether or not it is recommended that
Honorable Sheikh, sorry, there's a hand that is up. Honorable Clote?
Sorry, Chair, I was just...
you were raising your hands and I don't know whether it's a point of order. You know,
no, it's for deliberation later. Thank you.
Hello? Honorable Clote? You are raising your hands.
It's for a declaration, Chair. Thank you. It's for afterwards.
Can you please don't raise your hands now because I get disturbed and the speaker also is get disturbed. Okay. Honorable Sheikh, please continue.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. As I was saying, on the 18th of May 2020, the committee considered the salient points contained in the written submissions. At this meeting, the committee agreed to request a legal opinion on the aspects pertaining to public participation, particularly whether or not it is recommended that the committee hold public hearings. This was done despite the fact that most members were satisfied with and understood the contents of the written submissions. The legal opinion was required to ensure that the committee processes are above reproach and would pass any potential constitutional legal challenge. On the 4th of June 2020, the committee received a briefing from the Parliamentary Legal Advisor on the legal opinion on public participation. Some key points contained in the legal opinion relate to the following: that the committee has the power to decide how best to fulfill its obligation to fulfill public involvement. The fact that most members are satisfied with and understood the content of the submission, together with the fact that the committee provided the public with ample time to make submissions, was indicative of the public having given a real opportunity to have their say. And the legal opinion further clarified that the Constitution requires facilitation of public involvement. It does not require the holding of public hearings. Honorable Chair, in light of the legal opinion, the committee agreed that sufficient time had been afforded to the public to make written submissions, and within its discretion, its deliberations, and its understanding of the contents of the written submissions, the committee was satisfied that it had ensured that adequate public participation had taken place. At this meeting, the committee then received a briefing from the Parliamentary Legal Advisor and input from the Department of Home Affairs in response to the written submissions received. The committee agreed that the responses to the written submissions provided by the Parliamentary Legal Advisor and the Department of Home Affairs had adequately addressed any outstanding questions that members may have had in relation to the content of the bill and the implementation thereof. In particular, members were satisfied that the department's explanation of Clause 2 of the bill, which deals with transitional provisions, the department explained that they have undertaken a process of awareness raising with their officials, which is still ongoing. The department informed the committee that the 24-month period as set out in Clause 2 of the bill is necessary to ensure that there is adequate time provided for the department to continue with its training and to ensure that all officials are ready to implement the legislation effectively. The department indicated that the awareness raising has been successful and officials are more sensitized to the solemnization of same-sex unions. Honorable Chair, members had also considered Section 195, Subclause 1 of the Constitution, which provides that public administration must be governed by the democratic values and principles enshrined in the Constitution, including subsection D, that services must be provided impartially, fairly, equitably, and without bias. Members noted further that Section 197, subsection 3 of the Constitution provides that no employee of the public service may be favored or prejudiced only because that person supports a particular political party or cause. On the 11th of June 2020, the committee discussed the fact that prior to the meeting, the committee had received correspondence from 2 organizations who had made written submissions on the poll. They were given an opportunity to make written submissions on the poll. The committee noted that the correspondence reflected an attack on the presentation of the Parliamentary Legal Advisor, but also on the integrity of the Parliamentary Legal Services Unit. The committee received the necessary assurance from Parliamentary Legal Services Unit that it follows strict checks and balances and quality control mechanisms prior to dispensing advice to any committee in Parliament. The committee therefore agreed that all the correct procedures had been followed and all the relevant advice had been received. Members agreed that the repeal of Section 6 of the Civil Union Act 2006 was important in advancing equality and upholding the constitutional rights afforded to persons entering into same-sex unions. Honorable Chairperson, the Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the Civil Union Amendment Bill, referred to it and classified as a Section 75 bill, reports that it has agreed to the bill without amendments and recommends that the National Council of Provinces approves the bill. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. I now put the question. The question is that the bill be agreed to. Before we proceed to voting, I shall now allow parties the opportunity to make their declaration of vote in terms of the Rule 63, maximum of 3 minutes per declaration of vote, if they wish to do so. I see hands of Honorable Clote.
And Honorable Dodobia. And Honorable Dodobia again.
Honorable Dodobia, you are going to follow Honorable Clote. Honorable Clote.
Thank you very much, Chair. One of the proposals submitted to the Select Committee informed it that the Parliamentary Legal Services could have misdirected them on the interpretation and the application of the Bill of Rights in relation to the subject matter of the bill. The FF Plus specifically notes that the material area of law under which they suffered due to assumable mistakes on the part of the PLS could invalidate their decisions and actions once they adopted the bill while suffering from that misdirection. One such misdirection is the allegation that Section 6 of the Act is unconstitutional because it allegedly unfairly discriminates against persons of the same sex. This assertion could be incorrect. The Constitutional Court, in the landmark judgment, the Minister of Home Affairs and another versus Fourie and another, pointed out that, and I quote, the principle of reasonable accommodation could be applied by the state to ensure that civil marriage officers who had sincere religious objections to officiating at same-sex marriages would not themselves be obliged to do so if this resulted in a violation of their conscience. Having full knowledge of the prohibition against unfair discrimination in Section 9 of the Constitution, the Constitutional Court would not have proposed reasonable accommodation of civil marriage officers who are conscientious objectors in the form of, for example, Section 8 or rather 6 of the Act. If such a measure constitutes unfair discrimination, the measure was recommended because it does not constitute unfair discrimination against persons of the same sex and is accordingly not unconstitutional. The assertion that Section 6 is unconstitutional must be a misrepresentation. In fact, the repeal of Section 6 without grounds to motivate why civil marriage officers who are conscientious objectors should not be reasonably accommodated may in fact be deemed unconstitutional. Now, the FF Plus is of view that Section 6 of the Act should be amended by adding the following subsections that reads, the Minister must ensure that there is a marriage officer other than the marriage officer referred to in Section 5 or subsection 1 available to solemnize a civil union at every department at Home Affairs offices. This would clarify the purpose and practical result of Section 6, namely the reasonable accommodation of civil marriage officers. conscience rights by way of Section 6 may not impede service delivery to persons in the same sex. Thus, rights of both same-sex couples and civil marriage officers who are conscientious objectors would be respected, protected, promoted, and fulfilled required in terms 7.2 of the Constitution. Again, if this House accepts this amendment, it could be deemed as unconstitutional. The President should take note of this when he considers some of this into legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tlote. I'll now going to hand over to Honorable Nyambe, but before Dodovu can come in. Honorable Nyambe, can you please take over?
Thank you very much once more, Honorable Chairperson of the session. As the ANC, we support the Civil Union Amendment Bill. We support this bill because it is in line with the Constitution. As we are aware that there was a court judgment by the Court on this particular bill itself, hence it is amended in the way that it was amended. We are supporting this bill because the framework of our Constitution was developed by the ANC to ensure that we support constitutional democracy. The Bill of Rights contains various rights, and one of these includes the right to equality. And within this right, we must ensure that the state ensure that those who are unfairly discriminated are protected in this particular instance. And this right against who are discriminated would include on the grounds of race, gender, ethnic, as well as social orientation, color, and sexual orientation. And as the ANC, we support the fact that as public servants who are performing the national service, they need to help in terms of ensuring that this right to equality is realized in terms of the Constitution. It is in that context that we say public servants who have a responsibility also in terms of the Constitution to serve all our people irrespective of their gender, sexual orientation, and that their rights must be upheld. It is in that context that we as the ANC support this particular bill. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. From the Northwest Province.
Albongwe, Northwest. Thank you, Honorable Nyambe. Honorable Nyambe, can you please take over?
Honorable Nyambe, it looks like it's not here. I can take over.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Order, Zangamela, order.
Honorable
Deputy
Zangamela.
Chair, can you please take over?
I'm taking over. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair Ngwenya. Is there still another party that want to make a declaration of vote? None. I now will call on delegates so that we proceed to the voting. I will allow some time for all the delegates who are not on the platform to join the session. Can we now proceed to the voting on the question? Please note that each delegate, including special delegates, have one vote, and we are voting to agree to the bill. And we will use the raise your hand function on the gadgets. So those that do not have that function will indicate verbally how they are voting. So those that are voting in favor, can you please now use the raise your hand function and vote? Raise it, Honorable Dodovu. Close your microphone.
Tina Sia Vota.
Deputy Chairperson?
Yes, Honorable Modise, we take note.
I vote in favor.
Chair, you must vote.
Who else?
Chair, and
vote in favor. If they don't have the function, they can just indicate one. It's Modise. Tetra, do you have the function?
Yeah.
Who else?
It's not showing up, Chair.
Chairperson,
who else?
Is voting for JJ Skosana. JJ Skosana from Pumalang is voting for. Yes, he's having problem.
Mlombo from Pumalanga is voting for. Mlombo from Pumalanga is voting for.
Oh, Mlombo. I'm Charlie.
Chief Whip, are you fine?
I'm checking those who are not voting. My hand is up.
Khai is monitoring Mlombo.
Yes.
After that, can I lower the hands, advocate?
Yes, thanks.
You've captured everyone that is in favor.
But my hand is not lower.
Yes.
No, advocate, my hand is
No,
not lower.
it is lowered at the moment.
Was lower it, otherwise it will be counted. Yeah, I lowered.
Honorable Mandla.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Chair, we will proceed to the vote against.
Can we have the vote? Those that are voting against, all the hands are lowered. Honorable Kluti, FF plus, DA, Labuskahni. Who else?
Chairperson, that was an accident. I voted for the vote.
Oh, you are voting for because I saw your hand.
No, that was just.
Against. Against.
Order,
Zanella. Who else?
Man.
Are planning. Who else? Brenda. But Honorable Brenda. Lee, long time. Honorable Lee.
Yes.
Honorable Batebula, are you fine?
They say stay at home, not in
Just
the...
asking. By association, Honorable Batebula, Apleni, Kluti, Lehi, Zandamela is against. Thank you very much. Those that are abstaining, there is no abstentions. So, thank you. The count is complete now. All of your hands have lowered. Requested abstentions, there was none. So we will just wait for the results. Okay, it is send the results.
Deputy Chair, I report to the Chair that we have 3 votes in favor and none against.
How much favor?
And 5 against. And 5 against Deputy Chair.
5 against, and how many in favor?
3.
33.
Correct.
Thank you very much. This bill is agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. Honorable Nyambi, are you not back yet?
Deputy Chair, can I indicate that Honorable Nyambe is in conversation with the Auditor General regarding matters that are outstanding as House chairs together with Honorable Frodik. So he's not here now.
They would have loved to know you before, but it's fine.
Thanks.
Delegates, we will now proceed to the 11th order, that is a consideration of the Cybercrimes Bill, Bill B6B 2017, National Assembly Section 75, and the report of the Select Committee on Security and Justice thereon. I now call on the Honorable Sheikh to present the committee's report. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chair, internationally, most countries have cyber-specific legislation which criminalizes conduct that is considered cybercrimes. Most countries have or are in the process of building cybercrime capacity to address the sudden surge of cybercrime security breaches and attacks on critical information infrastructure. At present, South Africa has no comprehensive law and uniform law in terms of which cybercrime is prosecuted in no coherent and organized approach to deal with cybercrimes. There are a number of other factors that point to the urgency of a coherent legislative framework, including cybercrimes are investigated in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act 1977, but the investigative procedures contained in that act do not set out the specialized procedures required to investigate cybercrimes, and which involve electronic evidence. The Criminal Procedures Act 1977 also does not contain the special procedures necessary to ensure the integrity of electronic evidence. Existing procedures for mutual assistance between South Africa and foreign countries in the investigation of cybercrimes do not take into account the transient nature of electronic evidence and the need to act swiftly, with the result that essential evidence is lost. There is no obligation on electronic communication service providers and financial institutions to report cybercrimes and to preserve evidence of cybercrimes in their systems. There is no coherent and organized approach in South Africa to deal with cybercrimes. Different government departments have enacted legislation to deal with their own interests, and this silo-based approach had the effect various essential steps which are necessary for the cybersecurity wellness of South Africa were not addressed. To address this, in 2012, Cabinet approved the National Cybercrime Framework Policy, which seeks to define measures to address cyber threats at a national level and to strengthen intelligence collection, investigations, prosecution, and judicial processes to combat cybercrimes, cyber warfare, and cyber terrorism. The Cybercrimes Bill therefore seeks to rationalize South African legislation dealing with cybercrime into a single bill, create offenses and impose penalties relating to cybercrime, criminalize the distribution of communication that may adversely affect a person, regulate the jurisdiction to provide for the transnational dimension of crime, powers to investigate cybercrimes, mutual legal assistance between South Africa and other countries to deal with cross-border investigations of cybercrimes, and proof of certain facts by affidavit. The bill further imposed obligations on electronic communication service providers and financial institutions to assist in the investigation of cybercrimes and report cybercrimes. The bill provides for the establishment of a 24/7 point of contact by the South African Police Service to facilitate mutual assistance in the investigation of cybercrimes, the executive to enter into agreements with foreign states to promote cybersecurity, the repeal and amendment of certain laws and matters connected herewith. Honorable Chairperson, the Fifth Parliament Select Committee advertised the bill for public comment on Parliament's electronic platforms from the 5th of February 2019 with a deadline for written comments on the 8th of March 2019. 14 submissions were received on the bill from civil society and electronic communication service providers as well as private individuals. Given the technical nature of the bill, as well as most of the written submissions, the committee held public hearings on the 12th and 13th of November 2019. 17 organizations accepted our invitation to attend the public hearings. 2 organizations indicated that oral presentations would not be necessary. On the 5th of February 2020, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development presented its responses to submissions made. The South African Police Service also responded to public comments made on the Cybercrimes Bill and proposed further amendments to the bill. The National Prosecuting Authority indicated their concerns were catered for by the proposed amendments. Honorable Chair, during its deliberations, the committee considered both written and oral submissions from organizations as well as submissions from the relevant departments who may be affected by the implementation of the bill. A few of these important matters which require the committee's deliberation included Clause 16, where organizations raised concerns about ensuring that the bill contains more inclusive language, particularly in respect of gender identity. The amendments now address this as the title has been amended to provide better clarity, which now reads as Clause 16, Disclosures of Data Message of Intimate Image. Also, Clause 16, Subclause 2 has been amended to allow for the security provided by the clause to read in a more inclusive manner with due regard to gender neutrality and non-binary considerations. Another organization suggested that provision should be made in the bill for victims in the live broadcasting of incidents of sexual assault and rape via social media and the devastating impact thereof. The department indicated that an amendment to the Sexual Offences Act could be considered to address this concern. It is currently contained in the schedule to the bill, which provides for laws repealed or amended by the bill. Clause 40, an electronic communication service provider suggested that the definition of interception should be aligned with the definition of same in RICA. To address this, the amendments now include Clause 40, subclause 4, which is substantially similar to the current provision in the bill and does not aim to deviate from the RICA. The proposed amendments are contextual in nature and aim to address the concerns of the electronic communication service providers that the provisions as they stood may be interpreted to impose alternative requirements to the RICA requirements. Clause 26, SAPS had requested that this clause, which deals with the standard operating procedure, be amended from 6 months to 12 months due to the extensive consultation process that is required with senior government officials and through public consultation. The amendment addresses the concerns raised by SAPS and has extended the period to 12 months. Clause 32 and 33, SAPS raised concerns with these clauses, particularly insofar as Clause 32 subclause 2 and Clause 33 subclause 3 of the bill did not allow the SAPS to, without a warrant, access a computer data storage medium in unique and urgent circumstances. SAPS informed the committee that in these incidences, it would be very challenging for the SAPS to obtain a warrant or even to apply for a warrant orally in circumstances where time is of the essence to prevent or to resolve an unfolding crime that the SAPS do not know what that this unfolding crime and the SAPS do not know what information is stored on the device or even to whom the device belongs. The amendments now afford police officials the powers to access computers and to seize data on such devices in exigent circumstances without a warrant. The provision sets out the requirements that must be met before a police official may exercise his powers. These provisions are similar to Section 22, subclause B of the Criminal Procedure Act that provides for search and seizure of articles without a warrant. Honorable Chairperson, during its deliberation, members were particularly concerned about training and capacity building. To ensure that SAPS was able to implement the Cybercrimes Bill effectively, SAPS responded by informing the committee that Clause 55 places an obligation on the Minister of Police to establish sufficient human and operational capacity to address cybercrimes and to ensure that SAPS receives basic and specialized training. SAPS therefore confirmed that they are aware that training and capacity needs to be addressed to ensure their effective implementation of provisions of the bill, and that they are initiating this training to ensure that SAPS are able to adequately implement the bill. The Select Committee requested that the different departments who may be affected by provisions of the bill should meet to discuss their differences and find common ground before the next meeting. And on the 11th of March 2020, the committee received a further briefing from the departments on the proposed amendments. At this meeting, the committee agreed that the proposed amendments be referred to the parliamentary legal team for further processing and engagement with the departments. On the 10th of June 2020, the parliamentary legal advisor presented the proposed amendments for consideration, which include the following: altering the tone of the bill to reflect non-binary language as required by considerations of gender neutrality, equality, dignity, and identity. The restructuring of Clause 16 to specifically reflect the impact of the paragraph A, considerations in criminalizing the disclosure of data messages of intimate images. On recommending the amendments to clauses 1, 2, 3, 11, 13, 20, 21, 22, 24, 32, 33, 39, 40, 41, 42, 44, and 59, following comments received during public hearings, as well as further engagement with the Department of Justice, SAPS, and the National Prosecuting Authority. Consequential amendments throughout provisions and the schedule, additional style and technical amendments throughout the text to improve readability and interpretation of the bill, and as a result, Honorable Chair, a total of 45 out of the 60 clauses of the bill have been amended. Though, Honorable Chairperson, some of the substantive amendments include the following: Clause 11, which deals with aggravated offences, has been amended to address concerns raised in public hearings related to the provision being too vague. Clause 16, disclosure of data messages of intimate image. The title has been amended to provide better clarity. Also, Clause 16, Subclause 2, has been amended to allow for the security provided by the clause to read in a more inclusive manner with due regard to gender neutrality and non-binary considerations. Clause 21, the clause title has been amended to better speak to the provision. The new title now reads Electronic Communication Service Provided to Furnish Particulars to Court. Clause 24, which deals with jurisdiction, has been amended quite significantly to provide for the extended jurisdiction of courts in respect of cyber offences. This is to deal with the transnational dimension of cybercrimes and the reality that the modus operandi to commit such crimes may involve different jurisdictions. Clause 26 deals with standard operating procedures. Amendments provide for the replacement of 6 months with 12 months for issuing standard operating procedures. Clause 32 and 33 gives effect to the submissions made by SAPS. In conclusion, Honourable Chair, it is worthwhile to note that the bill, once enacted, will be the first non-binary bill in South Africa. The bill also serves to ensure that South Africa will have a comprehensive legislative framework to address cybercrimes, which is of the utmost importance given the constantly evolving nature of cybercrimes. The bill will further contribute towards the protection of women and children in the cyberspace arena and criminalize the actions of those seeking to exploit them. Honourable Chairperson, the Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the Cybercrimes Bill, referred to it on the 27th of November 2018, and after revival in the Council on the 17th of October 2019, referred to the Committee on the 31st of October 2019 in the Council Order Paper and classified by the Joint Tagging Mechanism as a Section 75 bill, recommends that the Council pass the bill subject to proposed amendments. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Though it took some time, it was necessary for the completeness of the matter, but members can also read it in the ATC. Thank you, Honourable Sheikh. We will put the question, but before we proceed to the voting, we will allow parties the opportunity to make a declaration of vote in terms of Rule 63 if they so wish. 3 minutes allowed for declaration of vote.
You're not audible, Chair. Deputy Chair, you're not audible.
Am I not audible? Can you hear me now? Am I still audible? Am I audible now?
Getting better, but still very soft.
I don't know why, because I'm just here next to the gadget. And there is nothing that is telling me that there is a problem. But if there is no declarations from anyone, we will then proceed to the voting. Can we just confirm that everyone is on the platform so that we can continue? Each delegate, including special delegates, has one vote, and the question is that the bill be agreed to. We will use the raise your hand gadget for those that doesn't have that specific function, and just indicate so verbally. Can we, those that vote in favor, can you please continue voting? The table will assist us. And just indicate when we can allow people to lower their hands. Honorable Modise, are you still having a problem?
Yes, Honorable Deputy Chair.
So you are voting in favor, but you are indicating it
I'm voting in favor, Honorable Deputy Chair.
Yes, Honorable Shiva, the ones of Mpumalanga, are they still having the...
Yes, Honorable JJ Skosana is also having a problem. He's voting in favor of.
Honorable Butler, don't you have the raise your hand function on your gadget?
I'm struggling, Chair.
Go into participants. Go into participants. Honorable Mlombo, you also don't have that.
I'm voting in favor.
Thank you.
I'm voting in favor, Chair.
You can lower your hand. You can lower your hand to take note. Honorable Butler, did you get that?
I did.
Yes, so for now, we take it that you also vote in favor. You can open your video. Honorable Bartlett. Honorable, who is there again? Okay, there is now all of those that are voting in favor. Advocate Pindela, did you get all the hands? Expand Honorable Bartlett. Advocate.
Yes, Deputy Chair, thank you very much. You may proceed.
So we can lower the hands and then we can get those that are voting against. Honorable Bartlett, can you please mute? Can we get those that are voting against? Honorable Matebula, are you all right?
Yes, I vote against, Chair, in the chat.
Are you voting against or in favor?
Against the Deputy Chair.
Honorable Matebula, Honorable Apleni, who else?
Against, Chair.
Honorable Lehi.
Welcome, Brenda.
Against.
Brenda.
Who is that?
Against.
Who is that? Identify yourself.
Lee.
The one that is saying against.
Honorable Apleni against.
Mandamela against.
Mandamela. Advocate, I have 4 that is voting against. So can we go to those that are abstain? Abstain? No one. So can we then get the voting is closed, honorable members. We will now get the results. Can we go to the table, Advocate Pindela?
Chairperson, 33 members in favor. We have 4 against and 0 abstentions.
So it is.
Chair, I hope you recorded my vote against Apleni.
We have definitely Honorable Apleni. We have recorded your vote. You voted on the system. So we have actually taken your vote into account. With that said and done, the bill is being agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. Honorable delegates, that concludes the business of the day. The House stands adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Chair.
Everyone is fed in this platform. Everyone is fed.
Please,
you look back, all of you.
I'm giving you look beautiful.
You look back, all of you, all of you.
Thank you from the northern case. Thank you.
You look back, all of you.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Dodovo.
Special delegates.
Procedural colleagues, please stay behind. Advocate would like a short meeting.
No,
Okay,
she's
okay.
left.
Yeah, she has left. Ravi, thank you very much. I'm not going to take a lot of time.
That's okay. Carry on.
Yeah. Or maybe I should arrange because it may not be very short. I want us to look at the voting procedure, colleagues.
Maybe Ravi can make some, Ravi is someone else co-host, then you don't have to stay if it's not, because we may have I don't know.
I'm going to, who's here? Let me see. Can I make one of you the host, and then I can leave the meeting, and then you can carry on without me?
Yeah, we can.
Who's volunteering? Madimetse. Who would like to be the host? Anybody? So I can just transfer this. Shaida, let me make you the host.
Who was the co-host?
Madimetse, Vuyo, Luvo.
Vuyo, are you there? Vuyo.
Yes, Advocate, I'm here.
Are you co-hosting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you are now the host.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to leave. Vuyo is the host.
Don't kick us out, Vuyo.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Ravi,
Yes.
It seems like YouTube is still streaming.
Let me move them to our
Advocate.
Huh?
Yeah.
Are they
Vuyo, move them to the waiting room.
Yeah.